The clock's red digits glowed 1:47 a.m. The office was silent except for the steady hum of computers and the occasional sigh of the air conditioner struggling to stay awake. Stacks of reports lay open across my desk, untouched, accusing me of laziness I didn't have the energy to deny. At some point, exhaustion had won. My pen slipped from my fingers, my cheek found the nearest pile of paper, and the next thing I knew, I was dreaming of absolutely nothing. If dreams had a sound, mine would have been the rustle of paper and the faint scent of coffee gone cold. I didn't hear the elevator ding, didn't notice the footsteps that stopped just outside my cubicle, didn't see Adrian pause in the doorway. He probably came in expecting to find me still working, buried under my usual mountain of spreadsheets. Instead, he found me, head tilted, glasses askew, drooling faintly on a quarterly expense report. Classy. If I'd been awake, I might have quipped, "See, sir, this is what loyalty to your company looks like, dehydration and unpaid overtime." But I wasn't awake, so I didn't see the way he stopped, didn't see the faint, helpless smile that crossed his face, the kind of smile that never survived daylight. "Even asleep, he looks like he's scolding someone," Adrian said. He set his briefcase down without a sound. The faint creak of leather was swallowed by the hum of the fluorescent lights. Adrian moved quietly, too quietly for someone who carried authority like a thundercloud. He shrugged off his jacket and, with a hesitation that didn't belong to him, draped it over my shoulders. It was warm, heavy. His scent, calm pine and something darker beneath, filled the air around me. It grounded everything, the flicker of the screens, the stale office air, the hollow in my chest that had been growing all week. He stood there for a long time, watching, thinking, regretting maybe. His fingers reached out, just barely, brushing a strand of hair from my forehead. His touch was so light it could have been a breeze. But even unconscious, some part of me must have felt it, because my body leaned instinctively toward the warmth. He drew in a slow breath. His voice, low and rough around the edges, slipped into the quiet like a confession, meant only for the air itself. "If I had a simple life, I'd live it with you. But I can't drag you into this mess." He lingered, close enough that his breath ghosted against my temple. Then, a feather-light press of lips, brief, careful, gone in a heartbeat. A secret promise made in silence. When he stepped away, the air seemed colder, the hum of the computers louder, the world lonelier. And I slept through all of it, unaware that my life had just shifted by a fraction of a breath. I woke to sunlight stabbing me directly in the eyes like it had a personal grudge. My neck ached, my wrist was numb, and my pen had left an imprint across my cheek. Glorious. I blinked blearily at the reports beneath me. They were wrinkled, damp with sleep drool, and, if the universe had any mercy, unread by anyone important. Then I noticed it, a familiar black jacket draped over my shoulders. I froze. His scent lingered on the fabric, crisp, quiet, unmistakably him. Adrian. The world tilted just slightly. For a full minute, I stared at the jacket like it was radioactive. Then I groaned, pressing a hand over my face. "Seriously? The man marks documents and apparently his secretary too." The words came out dry, automatic, my default setting, sarcasm as defense. But my heart, it wasn't laughing, because beneath the humor was warmth, the kind that spread quietly, stubbornly, into places I kept walled off. I touched the spot where the alpha's scent was strongest, right over my shoulder, right where his hand must have been, and all the jokes faded into something softer. "You shouldn't be kind to me like that. I'll start believing it means something." I folded the jacket carefully, maybe too carefully, and set it aside. My reflection on the dark monitor looked ridiculous. Messy hair, crooked glasses, a faint blush I couldn't explain. I exhaled, muttering to no one. "Congratulations, Eli. You've officially fallen for your boss's laundry." Then I smiled. Just a little. The kind of smile you hide before anyone sees. By midday, the office was alive again. Phones ringing, printers screeching, people pretending to look busy when Adrian passed by. I stood by the glass hallway overlooking the executive floor, nursing a lukewarm cup of coffee that tasted suspiciously like regret. Down below, through the clear glass walls of the conference room, Adrian was in his element, composed, confident, sleeves rolled, eyes sharp. He looked like he owned the world, and I looked like the guy who owned the coffee machine. A co-worker strolled up beside me, following my gaze with a grin. "You staring at the boss again?" I didn't flinch. "No," I deadpanned, taking another sip. "I'm checking if the company still has a soul." They laughed and walked off. I stayed. My reflection on the glass looked tired, the kind of tired that doesn't go away with sleep. But behind that exhaustion was something I didn't dare name. Admiration, affection, longing, the kind of emotion that felt too big for someone like me to carry alone. Adrian's voice carried faintly through the walls, calm and deliberate. Even when he spoke numbers, it sounded like a melody I could never unhear. He was born for this, to lead, to command, to make the world orbit around him. And yet, sometimes when he looked at me, the world tilted the other way. I told myself it was just in my head, that he didn't mean it, that alphas like him didn't look twice at secretaries who could barely keep their rent paid on time. But then, as if on cue, his gaze lifted, cutting clean through the glass, through the crowd of executives, landing straight on me. For one breathless second, we just looked at each other. His expression faltered. Barely. Just a flicker. Surprise, warmth, something he wasn't supposed to show. I looked away first, of course. My heart was too loud, my composure too fragile. "Stop looking at me like that, boss," I muttered under my breath. I already fell once. But the words didn't sound angry. They sounded tired, honest. When I finally turned to leave the hallway, I caught sight of my own reflection in the glass again. The faint curve of my mouth betrayed me, a smile too small to exist, too real to ignore. Sometimes I wondered what it would be like if we were ordinary. If he wasn't the alpha who carried a whole company on his shoulders, and I wasn't at the omega pretending my heart didn't need a race every time he said my name. Maybe we'd argue about dinner instead of deadlines. Maybe I'd fall asleep on a couch that wasn't surrounded by paperwork. Maybe he'd wake me up properly instead of pretending not to care. But we weren't ordinary, and we never could be. The office was chaos by 8:30 a.m. Phones ringing, printers choking, interns sprinting like caffeine-deprived gazelles. And me? I was the eye of the storm. Or at least, that's what I told myself every morning while juggling schedules, answering calls, and signing documents I probably wasn't supposed to. My desk was buried under folders and color-coded Post-its, and I'd already answered 12 emails, rescheduled a meeting, and diffused a potential HR incident, all before my first sip of coffee. If multitasking was a sport, I muttered, stabbing the send key, I'd win gold and still reply to client emails mid-run. A junior staffer blinked at me, holding a file like it was a live grenade. Should I? Yes, I said, snatching it, flipping through the pages, signing, and handing it back in one seamless motion. And if anyone asks, I'm totally fine, not internally screaming at the universe or anything. He scurried off. Smart man. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling. My reflection in the dark monitor looked exhausted, but functional, professional. The kind of Omega who didn't break even when buried alive under spreadsheets. Then came him. The low click of leather shoes, the subtle shift in the room's air pressure. Adrian. Every head in the hallway turned as he walked past. Tall, sharp suit, crisp tie, presence heavy enough to hush the room without saying a word. He was everything the corporate world worshipped: composure, control, perfection wrapped in a heartbeat. He stopped briefly near my desk, glancing at the papers I'd stacked overnight. His expression softened, just barely. "Good morning," he said, voice low, clipped, polite. A simple greeting. Nothing special. Except it made my chest tighten like a fist. I managed to smile, the kind that didn't reach my eyes. "Morning, sir. Already breaking productivity records, as you can see." He nodded once, then moved on. The air he left behind was faintly scented with cedar and clean musk. His scent, calm and grounding, the kind that lingered too long and made breathing harder than it should have been. I hated how easily my pulse responded, how easily I noticed. Just another ordinary day, right? Except nothing between us had been ordinary for a long time. By noon, I was knee-deep in the kind of scheduling nightmare that only executives and their overpaid weddings could cause. Adrian stood by the window of his office, sunlight haloing him in gold as he scanned the week's agenda. I sat across from his desk, clicking through my tablet, pretending my heart wasn't staging a rebellion. "Your meeting with the finance board has been moved to Thursday," I said. "Also, the florist sent confirmation for—" I stopped mid-sentence. The word hung awkwardly. "For the wedding arrangements." He looked up slowly. "Yes. Continue." I shouldn't have felt anything. It wasn't news. His engagement had been public for months, a perfectly arranged match with another high-status alpha. Business, strategy, not love. At least that's what I told myself every time the thought scraped through my chest. "Right," I said, scrolling mechanically. "The florist's confirmed for Saturday. The catering team will arrive at noon. I'll make sure the menu doesn't clash with your heartbreak consultant." His brow arched slightly. "Heartbreak consultant?" "Just trying to anticipate future needs, sir," I replied dryly. "You know, efficiency." He almost smiled. Almost. "You seem invested." "Of course, it's not every day I get to organize someone's happily ever after." I looked up, forcing my tone to stay light, my face unreadable. "I'll make sure everything runs smoothly, sir, including your emotional detachment." Silence. The kind that stretches just a little too long. His gaze met mine. Steady, unreadable, a storm behind calm waters. "You think I'm detached?" I looked away, pretending to type. "I think you're professional, like me." The lie tasted bitter. The memory came back like a bruise pressed too hard. Sudden, vivid, impossible to ignore. It was months ago. The company retreat. Some genius had decided that dragging everyone into a remote mountain resort for team bonding was a good idea. Translation: forced karaoke, bad barbecue, and me pretending to enjoy small talk with people who thought Omega was a polite insult. I still remembered muttering, "Oh, great. Even out of office hours, I'm working for the boss. Should have just added personal babysitter to my job title." By the third night, most people were drunk or asleep. The music had quieted. The fire had burned down to soft embers. Adrian had stayed longer than usual, his composure unraveling in the gentlest ways. A loosened tie, a slower blink, the faintest slur on his words. He'd been surrounded by a few executives at first, laughing, drinking, until one of them, an alpha from marketing, turned toward me. "Eli, you've been hiding all night," he said, waving a glass. "Come have a drink." I'd forced a polite smile. "Ah, no thanks. My liver's already on strike." But before I could take a step back, Adrian's voice cut through the laughter, low, clipped, colder than the mountain air. "That's enough, Mr. Hahn." The man froze, blinking. "Just offering—" I said that's enough. Adrian's eyes never left mine. His expression was unreadable, but the tension rolled off him in waves. The others laughed awkwardly and scattered. I should have left then. I really should have. Instead, I said quietly, "You know, sir, if you scare off everyone who offers me drinks, people might think you're jealous." He turned sharply, his gaze darkening. "Jealous?" I smirked, trying to lighten the mood. "Relax, it's a joke. Mostly." He didn't reply, just stared. Then, to my utter confusion, he reached for the bottle and poured another glass. "Come with me," he said. His tone left no room for argument. I followed him up to his cabin, rolling my eyes. "Oh, sure. Midnight meetings in secluded lodges. Totally HR approved." He didn't laugh. The door shut behind us with a soft click. And then everything changed. The moment was quiet, charged, the scent of cedar and storm in the air. His jacket was gone, his sleeves rolled up. His eyes, no longer calm. He stepped closer. Too close. My back met the wall, cold against my spine. "Adrian," I said, voice smaller than I intended. "You're drunk. You should sit." His hand hit the wall beside my head, not roughly, but with intent. His breath fanned against my cheek, warm, sharp with whiskey. "I can't stand it," he murmured, voice rougher than I'd ever heard. "Seeing anyone touch you." My heart stopped. That's the alcohol talking. He shook his head slowly. No, the alcohol just stopped me from pretending. I tried to speak, to joke, to do anything that would break the tension, but then he leaned in, and the world tilted. The first kiss was unsteady, desperate, his lips hot, tasting faintly of bitterness and something I couldn't name. I should have pushed him away. Should have reminded him who we were, boss and secretary, alpha and omega, wrong in every possible way. But I didn't. I couldn't. His hand slid to my waist, the other cupping the back of my neck as if I might vanish. The kiss deepened, a low sound rumbling from his chest that sent shivers down my spine. When he pulled back, his eyes were darker, his breathing uneven. Eli, he said, my name breaking like a plea. Tell me not to. I didn't. I couldn't. The mark came after, sharp, searing, and yet heartbreakingly tender. His teeth grazed the curve of my neck, his scent washing over me in waves. For a heartbeat, it felt like belonging, like something I'd spent years pretending I didn't need. Then reality snapped back. By the time the first light of dawn touched the cabin window, I was gone. The bedsheets still warm, his jacket draped over the chair, my heart a mess of shame and longing. He'd searched for the mysterious Omega from that night, quietly, discreetly. Asked a few staff, even me. Eli, he'd said weeks later, do you remember who was in cabin 4 that night? I can't seem to recall, and I'd smiled, perfectly professional. No idea, sir, but I'm sure whoever they were, they're regretting it deeply. He hadn't pushed, but I'd seen the flicker of something behind his eyes, suspicion maybe, or memory, and ever since we'd danced this silent, excruciating waltz of pretending. He didn't ask again, and I didn't confess. I blinked, snapping back to the present. My pen had paused over the meeting notes, my thoughts far away. Eli? Adrian's voice cut through, smooth and steady. You seemed distracted. I forced a smile. Just wondering if I should add wedding therapist to my job description, sir. He tilted his head slightly. I never asked you to... No, I interrupted softly. You never ask for anything, do you? For a moment our eyes met, the air between us thick with everything we'd never said. He looked away first, clearing his throat. Prepare the reports for tomorrow's briefing. Yes, sir, I murmured, scribbling on my pad. My hands were steady. My heart wasn't. As he turned toward the window again, sunlight tracing the line of his jaw, I thought, not for the first time, that if he ever remembered that night, if he ever looked too closely, everything would break. He hides behind his suit. I hide behind my smile. Maybe that's fair. But sometimes, when he says good morning, I almost forget we're both lying. And if he ever learns the truth, that the Omega he marked that night was the one who brings him coffee every morning, the world we built on silence will finally shatter. Ordinary days, extraordinary secrets. The next day, I was halfway through drowning in expense reports when a shadow fell across my desk. The kind of shadow that came with authority, cedar scent, and emotional damage. I looked up. Adrian stood there, immaculate as always, holding something in his hand. Your desk looks like a war zone, he said evenly. That's because it is, sir, I replied, flipping through pages. I'm fighting for survival. Office edition. He didn't smile, but there was that faint twitch in his jaw, the one I'd learned meant amusement, or frustration, or both. Then he extended an envelope toward me. This is for you. I blinked. What is it? My termination notice? Because honestly, I'd frame it. His gaze didn't waver. It's an invitation. To the wedding. I stared at the envelope like it might bite me. Oh, great, I said finally. A front row seat to emotional self-destruction. Silence. He blinked. You're joking. Barely, I said, taking it anyway. Should I RSVP with applause or therapy notes? Adrian's lips parted, just slightly like he might say something, but he didn't. Instead, he straightened his cuffs, voice calm. You're part of the executive coordination team. It's mandatory. I leaned back in my chair. Of course, nothing says corporate efficiency like watching your boss marry someone else. He hesitated. Something flickered across his eyes, too quick to read. You'll be compensated for the extra hours. Oh, perfect, I said lightly. I'll use that to buy earplugs for the vows. He gave me one last unreadable look before turning away. But as he walked off, I caught the faintest pause in his steps. Like there was something he wanted to say but couldn't. Maybe that was the cruelest part about us. The words we didn't say always hurt more than the ones we did. The next morning started better, at least as better as mornings get when you were trying to dress a 3-year-old who thinks pants are the enemy. Noah, sweetheart, please, I said, wrestling the tiny alpha-shaped tornado into his shoes. Your daycare teachers don't get paid enough for this kind of chaos. Noah looked up with those impossibly round eyes. Adrian's shade of blue, if I was cruel enough to notice. Daddy, can I tell Miss Laura that my daddy is invisible? I froze, then forced a grin. No, sweetheart, you can't. He giggled, clapping his hands. Classified. Exactly, I said, scooping him up. Now let's go before classified daddy grounds us both. The truth sat heavy beneath my ribs, like it always did. Noah didn't know who his father was, and I intended to keep it that way. At the daycare gate, I knelt to fix his jacket and kissed his forehead. Be good, okay? No telling stories about invisible daddies or the teacher will call me again. Noah grinned. "'Kay, love you, Daddy." "Love you more," I whispered, watching him run off. Then I turned back toward the car, smile fading as the door closed behind me. The sound of children laughing always did strange things to my chest. I got into the driver's seat and stared at the steering wheel for a moment before forcing a breath. I'm fine, I told myself. It's fine. Everything's perfectly fine. But it wasn't. Not when the man who didn't remember marking me was sending me wedding invitations. The rehearsal was chaos. Florists running late, photographers fighting about lighting, bridesmaids crying for reasons I didn't care to know. And me? I was holding a clipboard, 3 phones, and the last shreds of my sanity. Perfect, I muttered, straightening the bride's veil for the 3rd time. She gets the alpha, I get the spreadsheets. The bride, a perfectly pleasant woman, soft-spoken and elegant, smiled nervously. Is it straight? Straighter than the situation, I muttered under my breath. What was that? Flawless, I said brightly. You'll make history, Mrs. Future CFO. I caught Adrian's reflection in the tall glass windows across the hall. He was talking to someone, posture straight, expression cool, like he was carved out of composure itself. But when his gaze flickered toward me, just for a heartbeat, the calm cracked. Our eyes met. He looked away first. I scribbled a note on my clipboard. Memo: stop making eye contact with emotionally unavailable bosses. Side effects include regret and insomnia. After the chaos died down, I lingered backstage, checking the setup one last time. Adrian came up quietly, hands in his pockets. Good work today, he said softly. I looked up, feigning exhaustion. If by good you mean barely survived, then yes, absolutely stellar performance. He almost smiled. You complain too much. I'm underpaid, I shot back. He exhaled, a soft, almost amused sound, before stepping closer. Too close. His scent, the same calm cedar I'd been trying to forget, brushed against my senses. You've been distracted, he said. Everything all right? I met his gaze. You're getting married. I'm fine. It's just festive trauma. He didn't laugh. Instead, his eyes softened. That dangerous kind of softness that made my heart forget the rules. Eli? He started, then stopped himself. The hesitation stretched. Never mind. I tilted my head, smirking. You were going to say something serious, weren't you? Don't worry. I won't tell anyone the CEO of Morgan Group has feelings. He shook his head slightly, the ghost of a smile tugging his lips. You're impossible. I try. He left soon after. A brief, quiet exit, like always. But the scent he left behind lingered far longer than he did. That night, Adrian sat alone in his study, the glow of the city washing through tall glass windows. The invitation list lay open before him. but he wasn't reading it. His mind had wandered again. To him, Eli, that ridiculous, sarcastic, infuriating man who somehow made his life feel human. Adrian leaned back in his chair, eyes closing. He could still remember the first time he dehired Eli, how the Omega had argued about company policy in his interview. You don't want a yes man, sir. You want someone who'll tell you when you're being stupid. No one had ever spoken to him like that before. No one dared. And maybe that's why Adrian kept him close. Too close. But the closer he got, the more he remembered what closeness cost. Adrian's inner thought. My father used to take everything I cared about. The first dog I ever brought home, he killed it the same night. He said, an heir doesn't love things. He owns them. Adrian's jaw clenched. The memory burned. The helpless rage, the sound of a puppy's whimper cut short, his father's cold stare. So I learned, he thought bitterly, love makes you weak. Attachment is a noose. And yet, every time Eli smiled at him with that reckless warmth, every time he muttered something sarcastic under his breath, Adrian felt that noose tighten around his heart again. He whispered into the empty room, maybe this is the only way I can protect you, Eli. From me. From all of it. The wedding, this charade, was his shield. His way of keeping his father's shadow from touching the one person who made him forget to breathe. But even lies had cracks, and Eli had a way of slipping through every single one. Meanwhile, I was sprawled on my couch, Noah fast asleep beside me, his tiny hand gripping my sleeve. I brushed his hair gently, whispering, you're getting heavy, you know that? He stirred, mumbling, night, Daddy. I smiled faintly. Night, bug. For a moment, I let myself just watch him, the small rise and fall of his chest, the innocence that made my heart ache. He was everything good I'd ever done, everything pure I'd ever protected, and everything I could lose if the truth ever came out. My phone buzzed with a message. Adrian. Tomorrow's ceremony starts at 10. Don't be late. I typed back without thinking. Wouldn't dream of it, sir. Someone has to keep the bride from running away. Then deleted it. Too familiar. Too easy. I settled for Eli. Understood. I set the phone aside, leaning my head back against the couch. You're marrying someone else, I thought. And I'm still here scheduling your happiness. A bitter laugh slipped out. God, I'm pathetic. Outside, the city lights blurred into streaks of gold against the window. Bright, distant, unreachable. Maybe that's what we were. Two people pretending distance could keep them safe. Two fools trying to act like they hadn't already crossed the line long ago. I keep pretending I don't care. He keeps pretending he doesn't notice. But pretending only works until someone stops. And the wedding week was already starting to fall apart. If heartbreak had a soundtrack, it would probably be this. Violins, vows, and the collective sigh of the wealthy pretending love could be scheduled on a calendar. I stood near the back of the grand hall, clipboard in hand, pretending his chest wasn't caving in. The wedding was a flawless performance. The chandeliers dripping light, petals scattered with mathematical precision, the air thick with designer perfume and polite applause. I'd helped plan every second of it. I'd chosen the champagne, checked the sound system, rehearsed the bride's walk. And now, I was the only one in the room trying not to scream. Love looks better from the sidelines anyway, I muttered under his breath. The sound technician beside me gave me a weird look. I offered a half smile. Sorry, allergic to commitment. I straightened my tie, a nervous habit, and scanned the room. Adrian stood by the altar, a perfect image of composure. Black suit, silver cufflinks, emotion buried somewhere deep behind calm blue eyes. The kind of man who didn't stumble, didn't falter, didn't feel. Except I knew better. I'd seen him when the cameras were gone. Quiet, tired, human. The same man who once draped a jacket over me when I'd fallen asleep at my desk. The same man who had once whispered things against my skin that Eli still pretended to forget. I forced himself to look away. This wasn't about me. I was staff, background, a shadow in a tailored vest, My heart had no business being here. Rows of guests filled the hall, glittering with money and gossip. Executives, politicians, old money families, all there to witness the union that would merge two empires. Mr. Adrian Morgan and Ms. Clarice Vaughn, the announcer's voice echoed smoothly. Welcome the dawn of a new partnership. Partnership. That word made me want to laugh, or cry, or both. I adjusted my earpiece and murmured into the mic, "Stage team, stand by for the walk." My tone was professional. My hands weren't steady. The bride entered, graceful and glowing, her veil shimmering under the chandeliers. Gasps and sighs rippled through the crowd. Somewhere, a camera clicked. I swallowed hard, glancing toward Adrian. The alpha's expression didn't change, but his shoulders were tight, too tight for a man moments away from happily ever after. Maybe no one else noticed, but I did, because I always did. He whispered to himself, almost bitterly, "Relax, boss. It's just your fairy tale ending." I didn't realize I was gripping the edge of my clipboard until my knuckles turned white. It happened so fast that my brain barely caught up. 1 second, the priest was speaking. The next, a small voice pierced the silence. "Daddy!" The word rang out, bright and clear, echoing through the cathedral-like hall. Heads turned. Whispers rippled. My soul left his body. My eyes snapped to the source. And there he was. Noah. My 3-year-old hurricane of a son, standing proudly in the middle of the aisle, clutching a small toy car, beaming like sunshine. "Oh, my God," I whispered. My body moved before my brain did. "Noah!" I darted forward, weaving between guests, heart hammering so loud I barely heard the rising gasps. The babysitter, pale and breathless, chased after him from the side door. I'm so sorry. He just slipped away." Noah ignored everyone, eyes fixed on the tall figure at the altar. "Daddy, you're so far away!" Time fractured. Adrian froze. His expression, blank at first, went flickered, confusion cutting through the composure. He took a half step forward, then another, and then his instincts hit like thunder. I reached the child just as Adrian did. The two worlds collided, quiet chaos under 1,000 watching eyes. I bent down, whispering frantically, "Noah, baby, we talked about this." But Noah had already run straight past me, straight into Adrian's arms. For one infinite, impossible heartbeat, no one breathed. Adrian knelt, automatically catching the boy before he stumbled. The small body fit against his chest perfectly. Too perfectly. His alpha scent flared, sharp and protective, flooding the space like lightning before rain. My pulse went wild. Oh, hell! The hall had gone silent. Guests whispered, confused, curious, scandalized. Adrian looked down at the child in his arms. Noah blinked up at him, fearless, smiling. The same curve of lips, the same dimple that appeared when Adrian forgot to hide his smile. Something deep and ancient stirred in Adrian's chest. His instincts screamed. His pulse roared in his ears. "Mine!" The word hit him with feral clarity. His scent spiked, raw, territorial, rolling through the air before he could control it. The nearby guests shifted uncomfortably, some turning their heads, sensing the shift in dominance. My lungs stuttered. "Adrian, don't!" But the alpha's body had already recognized what his mind hadn't dared to. The child's scent, faint, familiar, carried traces of his own. The same cedar warmth, the same undertone he'd marked once long ago. It wasn't possible. It shouldn't have been possible. Yet here he was, kneeling in front of the world, holding a child who looked at him like the sun. His heartbeat thundered. "He looks like me." No, it's not possible. I would have known. I would have... Eli. His gaze shot up, and found me. I was standing frozen near the aisle, face pale, eyes wide, every inch of my sarcasm stripped away. And Adrian saw it, the fear, the guilt, the trembling breath I tried to hide. "Eli," he thought, "it's you." All the fragments slammed together, the scent from that night, the unanswered questions, the way I had always avoided personal talk. the protective distance around the child I'd never spoken of. His stomach twisted, memory colliding with reality. The mark, the night he'd thought was a dream. The voice that had whispered his name like a prayer. I can't see you with anyone else. The same words that had burned his tongue that night. He'd spent months trying to erase it, convincing himself that the drunken haze had imagined the warmth of that voice, the scent that matched his so perfectly. But now, there was no denying it. The truth was standing right in front of him, with tiny hands clutching his collar. He looked down again, and Noah, oblivious to the storm, giggled. You smell nice, Daddy. The word shattered him. Adrian, I said quietly, stepping closer, voice shaking. Give him to me, please. Adrian's head turned toward him slowly, eyes no longer calm but wild, hurt, confused. You... His voice came out low, dangerous. You kept this from me. I flinched. Not here. Please, not now. You... He stopped himself, jaw tight. The hall was watching, cameras flashing, dozens of guests whispering like vultures. My heart pounded in his throat. Adrian, please, I whispered, barely audible. You're scaring him. That broke something in the alpha's gaze. His arms loosened slightly around the child, instinct giving way to restraint. He looked down at Noah again, small, trusting, innocent. Noah tugged at his tie. Daddy, why are you sad? Adrian swallowed hard, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. I'm not, buddy, just surprised. I reached out, voice soft. Come on, sweetheart, let's go back to your sitter, okay? Noah looked between them, confused but obedient. Okay, Daddy and Mama. I nearly choked. Oh my God. A ripple of laughter broke through the crowd, uneasy, disbelieving, but it was enough to break the tension. The moment dissolved into chaos. But for Adrian and me, the world had already stopped. Adrian dragged me behind closed doors. For a moment, we just stared at each other. I spoke first, voice barely steady. You weren't supposed to find out like that. Like that? Adrian's voice was quiet, cold, trembling beneath the surface. You mean it all, don't you? I winced. It wasn't... It's complicated. Complicated? He stepped closer, his scent sharp, desperate. He's mine, isn't he? I didn't answer. Couldn't. Adrian's throat worked, emotion raw behind his steady tone. You should have told me, Eli. And what would you have done? I shot back, voice rising. Married me? Introduced our kid to the board? You can't even admit you have a heart, Adrian. Silence crashed between us. Painful. Real. Finally, Adrian's voice broke, barely a whisper. I would have protected you. I stared at him, eyes burning. You're marrying someone else, Adrian. Protection's a little late. I thought I could keep the truth quiet. But truth doesn't care about timing. It always shows up, usually wearing tiny shoes and shouting in public, I thought. Adrian looked in my eyes and said, I lost everything I ever loved once. I won't lose this time. And outside, the church bells began to ring, for a wedding that would never finish. He is not yours, I said and left immediately. If someone ever wrote a book about my life, this chapter would be called Running Away in Designer Shoes While Your Ex-Fiancé Realizes He Has a Father. I slammed my apartment door shut and leaned against it, panting. Noah clung to my leg, wide-eyed, clutching his toy car like a security blanket. It's okay, baby, I said, my voice still shaking. Daddy's got this. Everything's fine. He blinked up at me. You look sweaty. Observant as always, I muttered, dropping to my knees and hugging him close. His small arms went around my neck, warm and solid and real, the only thing in this entire disaster that was real. My brain was chaos. I didn't remember leaving the venue. I just remembered Adrian's face, that look, the exact moment realization hit him, the kind of shock that rewrites someone's world in silence. And now, he knew. I tried to breathe, tried to calm the shaking in my hands, tried not to imagine what came next. There was a knock, sharp, controlled. I didn't need to ask who. Eli, came his voice, deep, steady, but rougher than usual. Open the door. Of course he followed me. Alpha instincts were basically GPS with emotional trauma. I exhaled, muttering, fantastic. The consequences of my life choices, right on schedule. Noah tugged my sleeve. Is Daddy mad? I swallowed. We'll find out. I opened the door halfway, ready to tell him off. But Adrian didn't wait for permission. He pushed past me, pacing straight into my living room like he owned the place, which, considering the rent was paid from his company's paycheck, wasn't entirely wrong. His scent hit first, sharp cedar and storm, thick with adrenaline. He looked furious and lost all at once. Whose child is he? He demanded, voice low, trembling around the edges. Straight to the point. Classic Adrian. No. Can we talk? No. Are you okay? Just nuclear detonation in question form. I crossed my arms. Mine. Shocking, I know. Biology's wild. Don't. His tone snapped. Don't joke about this, Eli. I met his gaze evenly. Why not? Humor's the only thing keeping me from collapsing. He took a step closer, eyes blazing. He called me Daddy. Yeah, he also called a mannequin at the mall Uncle Breadstick. Kids say a lot of things. Stop deflecting. Stop interrogating me. We stood there, two idiots trying to outstubborn each other while a toddler hummed the Paw Patrol theme in the corner. Adrian's chest rose and fell sharply. His alpha scent spiked. Not just angry, but something deeper, rawer. The air shifted, pressure thickening, instincts humming under my skin. He was close enough that I could feel it. The unspoken pull that always short-circuited my sense of reason. Then he froze. His eyes flicked toward Noah, who was now building towers out of juice boxes. I saw it happen. That flicker of realization again, but this time, scent-driven. His nostrils flared. A subtle, quiet inhale. And then his entire body went still. The silence stretched too long. When he finally spoke, his voice had dropped to a whisper. He's mine. The words weren't angry this time, just hollow, fragile. Like if he said them too loud, the universe might take them back. I closed my eyes. My throat felt like glass. Congratulations, Daddy, I said weakly. You win the genetic lottery. Adrian just stared at me, unreadable. Then he moved, one slow step, then another, until he stood beside Noah. He crouched down, eyes softening. Noah looked up at him, curious. Hi, he said cheerfully, holding up his toy. Want to play cars? Adrian didn't answer for a few seconds, then voice trembling, Yeah, I'd like that. I couldn't look at them. The sight was too much. Too right. Too dangerous. Adrian straightened, turning back toward me. Why didn't you tell me? I laughed, sharp and humorless. Because you were busy getting engaged to someone else. Didn't want to ruin your PR fairy tale. He flinched. That's not fair. Fair? My voice cracked. Nothing about this is fair, Adrian. Not the fact that I raised him alone. Not the fact that I had to lie every day because the minute your father knew he'd... Stop. His voice hardened, but there was fear behind it. Don't say that. You know it's true, I shot back. He would have taken him, used him, turned this into another corporate pawn on your family chessboard. Adrian's jaw clenched. He looked away, guilt flickering in his eyes. And there it was. The moment the perfect alpha didn't know what to say. He ran a hand through his hair. I would have protected you. Really? I laughed again, bitter. You couldn't even protect a stray dog you loved. He froze. I hadn't meant to say it. But the memory came flooding back. A boy, a small puppy, a father who believed affection was weakness. Adrian's father had killed it the next day. Adrian's voice broke. He took everything I ever cared about. Everything I tried to keep. Exactly, I whispered. That's why I couldn't tell you. I wasn't going to let him take Noah, too. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Noah yawned loudly and announced, I'm sleepy, before wandering to his room with his toy. The door clicked shut behind him. And just like that, it was just us. The adults who wrecked each other, lives standing in a silence that hurt to breathe in. Adrian's voice was quiet now. You think I'd let him hurt you? I think you'd try to stop him, I said, and you'd lose, like you always do with him. His jaw twitched. You really think that little of me? I think you're too good to be ruthless, I said, eyes meeting his. And your world doesn't reward good. His gaze flickered, something dark and broken swimming there. You should have trusted me. I did, I said softly. Once, the words landed between us like a bruise. Adrian exhaled, the tension bleeding into exhaustion. So what now? I shrugged, forcing my tone light. Now you go back to your mansion. I'll keep raising my kid. We pretend this never happened. Easy. You think I can do that? His voice cracked, and I'd never heard it crack before. You've done harder things. His lips curved into something almost like a smile. You're still the same, still mouthy when you're terrified. I prefer witty under pressure. He huffed a laugh, but his eyes didn't join in. They were locked on me like I was something he'd lost a long time ago and had no idea how to touch without breaking it. Then his expression softened. He has your stubbornness, and your terrible hairline, I said automatically. He almost smiled. Almost. Then the air shifted again, heavier, quieter. His hand twitched, like he wanted to reach out but didn't dare. I don't know what to do, he admitted finally. You don't have to do anything, I said. Just stay away. It's safer. For who? He asked quietly. I didn't answer. He turned toward the window, looking out at the city lights like they held the solution. My whole life I was told that love is leverage, that caring makes you weak. I stayed silent. But when he called me Daddy, he stopped, swallowing hard. It didn't feel like weakness. It felt like... He shook his head. Like something worth losing everything for. Something in my chest stuttered. You don't get to say things like that, I said softly. Not when you're still engaged. He looked back at me, and the devastation in his eyes almost knocked me over. You think I can go back to her after this? I didn't want to answer that either. Noah's muffled snores came from the bedroom. The world felt smaller now, quieter, like the city itself was holding its breath. Adrian stood by the door, hand on the frame, torn between leaving and staying. Eli, he said, voice low. I'm not going to disappear. I smiled faintly. You always say that. He looked at me for a long, silent moment. Then, with a soft exhale, he stepped closer. Just close enough for our scents to mix, his cedar wrapping faintly around my skin. He didn't kiss me. He didn't touch me. He just looked. The kind of look that says, if the world were different, I'd stay. Then he whispered, maybe this time, I'll fight for what I want. He turned and left. The door clicked shut. His scent lingered like a ghost. I stood there, laughing under my breath, tired, broken, half in disbelief. Great, I muttered to myself. Now the Alpha's having a character arc. I thought keeping secrets protected us. But maybe all it did was delay the explosion. And the worst part? Even after everything, part of me still wants him to stay. Walking into the office that morning felt like stepping into a wildlife documentary. Predators, aka gossiping co-workers, lurked behind cubicles whispering over coffee. Every swivel chair turned in unison when I entered, like synchronized judgment. I raised a brow. Relax, people. I'm not here to seduce the boss. I'm here to fix his terrible calendar. Someone actually dropped their pen. Guess sarcasm was still too advanced for this species. I walked to my desk, ignoring the whispers. My inbox looked like a war zone. My coffee was cold, and my life, as usual, was a disaster wearing a tie. Then came the voice, low, steady, dangerous in that you can't ignore me way. Eli, my office. I froze mid-step. The air shifted instantly, Every head in the room popped up like meerkats. I sighed, muttering under my breath. See? Magnet for trouble. Adrian stood by the window when I entered, sleeves rolled up, the city light cutting across his face like something out of a very expensive painting. Unfortunately, that painting had emotionally scarred me multiple times. Close the door, he said quietly. Oh, good. The 4 scariest words in any workplace. I did, leaning against the frame like I didn't have an anxiety-induced stomachache. You wanted to see me, boss? I asked, keeping it casual. He turned. His eyes softened, barely, but I saw it. You should have told me. I blinked. Oh, sure, I said flatly. I'll just slip that into next week's memo. By the way, I gave birth to your kid. Please approve HR leave. I'm sure legal would love that. His jaw tightened, part frustration, part guilt. I mean it, Eli. I know, I said quietly, but meaning doesn't change what would have happened if I did. Silence stretched. His scent filled the room, cedar and steady control. The kind of scent that used to make me feel safe, back when I was stupid enough to think safety and him could coexist. He looked at me for a long moment. You're still angry, I snorted. I'm a single parent working overtime under my ex, who happens to be a CEO/almost groom. Angry is my baseline emotion. A flicker of something almost like amusement crossed his face. I missed your sarcasm, he said softly. I rolled my eyes. You missed your assistant's efficiency. Don't romanticize it. He smiled faintly, but it didn't reach his eyes. You always underestimate how much I notice. Before I could come up with a witty comeback, his intercom buzzed, a reminder about the upcoming board meeting, saved by capitalism. He said quietly, Stay close during the meeting. Sure, I muttered, picking up my tablet. Wouldn't want the sharks to smell blood. Meetings with the executive board were always a mix of corporate jargon and thinly veiled ego contests. I stood at the side, taking notes, pretending I wasn't aware of the stares, especially the ones aimed at me. It didn't take long before one of the senior managers, a man who clearly thought misogyny was a leadership trait, leaned toward another and muttered, just loud enough to be heard. Guess the boss's secretary position comes with fringe benefits. The words slid through the air like oil. A few forced laughs followed. My grip on the tablet tightened, but I kept my face perfectly neutral. Before I could even open my mouth, the temperature in the room seemed to drop 5 degrees. Adrian didn't even look up from his notes when he said, voice sharp as glass, Anyone disrespecting Secretary Eli can resign today. Silence. Heavy. Absolute. The man paled. Sir, I didn't... Adrian finally looked up, eyes cutting through him like ice. You did. And that's one more sentence than I care to hear from you. The meeting continued. No one dared breathe too loudly after that. I stood there, pulse still racing, pretending to focus on my notes. When Adrian's hand brushed mine briefly while taking a document, I caught the subtle brush of his scent, grounding, protective, infuriatingly steady. He didn't look at me, but his words from earlier echoed in my head. You should have told me. Maybe he was right, or maybe I was right to stay silent. Either way, now the whole company knew there was something electric between us, and no amount of professionalism could hide it. As the room cleared, I leaned toward him, keeping my voice low. Wow, didn't know I came with alpha-grade protection. He didn't look up from his papers. You always have. That shouldn't have made my chest ache, but it did. I forced a grin. That's cute. You rehearsed that? Eli, he said quietly, almost pleadingly. Nope, not doing this here. I grabbed my tablet and headed for the door before the room got smaller. We ended up in the elevator together, of course, because the universe loves irony. The air was too quiet, too close. I could feel the hum of his scent beside me, calm, controlled, but threaded with something warm and dangerous. You didn't have to defend me, I said finally, eyes fixed on the glowing floor numbers. He glanced at me. I wanted to. That's not smart, I said. People already love gossip. He stepped a little closer. Let them talk. I snorted. Careful, boss. People might think you care. He turned then, really turned, meeting my eyes fully. Maybe I do. Something in his tone made my heartbeat stutter. It wasn't a confession. It was a quiet, inconvenient truth he couldn't stop himself from saying. I swallowed. That's your problem, then. He smiled faintly, that rare, small, devastating smile that used to undo me completely. Maybe, he said softly, but it's a problem I'll live with. The elevator dinged. The doors opened. I stepped out first, pretending my legs weren't shaking. Back at my desk, I could feel eyes on us, whispers swirling like smoke. I ignored them, typing away, pretending my heart wasn't doing cartwheels. From the corner of my eye, I saw Adrian through his office window. Calm, composed, but every few minutes, his gaze flicked toward me. Just a glance. Barely there. But enough. And I hated that part of me still warmed under it. I typed a memo to him. Next time you want to make a statement, maybe buy me coffee instead of firing an executive. He replied 5 minutes later. Noted. Latte or cappuccino? I bit back a smile. Damn him. I muttered under my breath. You really don't make this easy, do you, boss? Somewhere behind that glass, Adrian looked up, like he heard me. He keeps saying I always had his protection. But maybe that's the problem. Because every time he shields me, I forget how to keep my own walls up. The week after the wedding that wasn't a weird tea felt like walking through a minefield of whispers and coffee cups that stopped clinking whenever I walked in. I'd perfected the art of pretending not to notice. Relax, people, I said Monday morning, dropping my files onto the break room table. The baby's not going to call any of you daddy, promise. The silence that followed was so thick it could have been served on toast. I grabbed my mug, poured coffee, and added, although the way some of you gossip, maybe check your schedules for paternity tests. That got a few nervous laughs. Good. Let them think I was fine. Inside, I wasn't. Every time Noah giggled in his sleep, I heard Adrian's low voice saying, he's mine. Yeah, congratulations, you win, Alpha Genetics. Wednesday morning, my doorbell rang at an ungodly hour. I opened it to find Adrian standing there in a perfectly pressed shirt, holding a tiny blue lunchbox. For Noah, he said. I blinked. You made lunch? He hesitated like the word made was foreign. I supervised the process. I raised a brow. So your assistant made lunch. He ignored that. I want to help. Be there for him. I leaned on the door frame. You can't just CEO your way through parenting, Adrian. You can't schedule bonding time like a board meeting. Watch me, he said simply, stepping inside like he owned the place, which, given his personality, he probably thought he did. He crouched beside Noah, who was stacking blocks on the floor. The kid looked up, grinned, and squealed, Daddy! Adrian froze for a second, then smiled, real, not the PR one. Hey, champ. And just like that, something inside me cracked a little. Later, when Adrian offered to drive us to daycare, I nearly refused. But Noah was already putting on his shoes, beaming, so I sighed. Fine, but no fancy cars. I don't want the teachers thinking I'm dating my boss. Adrian gave me a look. Would that be so bad? Terrible, I said quickly. HR nightmare. You'd have to fire me. Then who'd fix your disastrous calendar? His lips curved slightly. True. No one else could survive your sarcasm. He had no idea how close he was to the break the walls I build around my heart. By noon, the office buzzed like a hive of rumors. I could feel it. The sidelong glances, the whisper chains that probably involved words like baby, boss, and secret affair. So when I walked into the lunchroom and heard my name followed by a snicker, I didn't hesitate. Gentle reminder, I said, placing my tray down. If you're writing my scandal novel, I'd like editing rights. At least make me taller and rich. The manager who'd been whispering, Mr. Patel, mid-40s, smug, looked startled. We were just talking. Loudly, I cut in. Maybe next time try whispering into a pillow. The room went dead silent, and then Adrian walked in. Everyone instantly straightened. The air changed, thicker, sharper, electric. He didn't say a word, just looked around slowly before fixing his gaze on Patel. "Who?" he said, voice cool and crisp. "Who dare insult what is mine?" The silence deepened. Someone actually dropped a spoon. I blinked at him, half shocked, half mortified. I wanted to make a joke, to break the intensity, but my throat had suddenly gone dry. His eyes lingered a second too long, his scent warm and steady. And then he left, just like that, leaving the whole room stunned. I sat down again, speared my salad, and said to the staring crowd, "Well, that was subtle." That night, I'd finally gotten Noah to bed when there was a soft knock on my door. Adrian stood there again, this time with no tie, sleeves rolled up. I crossed my arms. "If this is about babysitting, I charge extra for emotional damage." He smiled faintly. "No, I just wanted to see you." "Bad idea, boss," I said, though my voice was gentler than I meant it to be. He stepped inside anyway. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The hum of the fridge filled the silence. Finally, I sighed. "You know, this whole white knight act, defending me in meetings, showing up here, it's sweet, but it's not going to fix anything." He looked at me, and something in his eyes made my breath catch. "You think this is an act?" I shrugged, forcing a smirk. "Well, you're a CEO. Acting's basically your job description." That earned a small laugh from him. Then he said quietly, "I've been buying shares. All of them. The board, my father's stakes, everything. Trust me." I frowned. "You're what?" He met my gaze. "So he can't control me anymore. So he can't take away the people I care about." Something cold twisted in my chest. "Adrian." He looked away. "When I was a kid, I brought home a cat once. My father, he killed it. Said I needed to learn not to get attached. He repeated this every time I brought a pet. Last time he killed a dog, so I stopped getting attached." I swallowed hard, my sarcasm suddenly feeling small and useless. "I'm not letting him touch what's mine again," Adrian said softly. "Not my company. Not you. Not Noah." My heart thudded. "You can't just decide that we're yours." He looked at me, steady, aching, sincere. "Then tell me you're not." I wanted to. I really did. Instead, I turned away, muttering, "You should go before Noah wakes up." Adrian hesitated, then said quietly, "I'll see you tomorrow." When the door clicked shut, I exhaled shakily and leaned against it. The apartment was silent, except for Noah's soft breathing from his room. "Great," I whispered to the empty space. Now the overbearing alpha is trying to fix his daddy issues with stock purchases and emotional confessions. But when I caught my reflection in the window, flushed cheeks, trembling lips, I realized I wasn't laughing anymore. Because the truth was, part of me wanted to believe him. And that was the most dangerous thing of all. If someone had told me I'd wake up one day and find my face, and my kids, plastered all over gossip sites, I would have laughed, or cried, or both. The headline read, "CEO Adrian Hale's secret family, fiancé speaks out." Fantastic. I was trending for the first time, and it wasn't for my good looks. I sat at my desk staring at the screen like maybe it would burst into flames and erase itself. No luck. Noah's tiny face smiled back from the photo, one I'd taken on a Sunday morning, back when privacy still existed. "Great," I muttered. "World domination via toddler cheeks. My legacy is complete." Phones rang nonstop outside the office. PR teams scrambled. Someone was definitely crying in the hallway. It was chaos. And in the middle of it all, Adrian Hale, my boss, my mistake, my alpha, stood at the center of a storm he hadn't started. When he finally walked into the office, silence fell like a guillotine. He looked composed, too composed. The kind of calm that comes right before something explodes. Our eyes met. His were darker than usual. "Eli," he said quietly. "My office." There it was, my invitation to the execution. He shut the door behind me. No one else dared breathe outside it. Adrian placed his phone on the desk, the photo of Noah still on the screen. "She leaked it," he said flatly, "because the engagement's over." I blinked. Wow, you say that like you just canceled a lunch meeting. He didn't even react. You and Noah will be protected. I've already called my lawyers. Protect us? I scoffed. From what? Public opinion or your family's outrage? Newsflash, Hale, I've survived worse than hashtags. Something flickered behind his calm. Guilt, maybe, or hurt. You shouldn't have to survive it alone. I leaned back against the wall, arms crossed, masking the tremor in my chest with sarcasm. Sure, nothing says comfort like my billionaire ex-boss deciding to play hero. He sighed, the sound heavy. You really think this is about image? I think it's about you fixing a problem that shouldn't exist. His eyes softened. You and Noah are not problems. That almost broke me. Almost. So instead, I smiled, sharp and tired. Good to know. Still, I quit. I didn't wait for his reaction. I'd already written the letter, printed neatly on company stationery. Old habits die hard. Dear Mr. Hale, effective immediately, I resign from my position as your executive secretary. Thank you for the opportunity to manage your chaos. Sincerely, Eli Parker. I left it on his desk and turned to leave. I made it exactly 3 steps before a hand caught my wrist. Eli, Adrian said, voice rougher than I'd ever heard it. You think I'd let you go? That's kind of the point, I said without turning. You're not supposed to keep what you've already broken. His grip tightened. Not enough to hurt, but enough to make my breath hitch. You didn't ruin me, Eli. I laughed, low and bitter. Tell that to your PR department. He turned me around, eyes fierce. You made me realize what I actually want. I froze. The world narrowed to his voice, his hand, the distance between us that felt too small and too wide all at once. And it took fatherhood to get there? I said finally, raising a brow. You're slow, boss. He exhaled, half a laugh, half a confession. Maybe, but I'm done running from it. For a heartbeat, neither of us moved. Outside, the noise of reporters and phones and panic blurred into nothing. It was just us, the man who'd built empires and the idiot who'd fallen for him between coffee breaks and chaos. I bought out the rest of the company, Adrian said suddenly. I blinked. What? I've been buying shares quietly for months, he continued. My father doesn't own a single piece of it anymore. He can't control me, or what I choose. If I had given up from CEO position, he still won't let me go, so no other way out. The words hit like thunder, a mix of shock and something dangerously close to hope. You're serious? I thought you were joking earlier, I asked softly. He nodded. I did it because I was tired of living by someone else's rules, because every time I looked at you, I thought... He stopped, breath catching, eyes searching mine. Thought what? I prompted, heart racing. That maybe I could have something simple, real, you, Noah, a life that isn't built on fear. My throat tightened. I wanted to joke, to say something snarky like, wow, look at you, Mr. Emotional Growth. But all that came out was a shaky, Adrian. He stepped closer, close enough that I could smell the familiar steadiness of him, cedar, coffee, and the faint echo of everything I'd ever wanted. I can't change the past, he said, but I can choose now. And I choose you. For a long moment, I just stared at him. The man who'd once been untouchable, now standing in front of me, stripped of every wall he'd ever built. Finally, I sighed, breaking the silence the only way I knew how. You really should have led with that before the whole engagement thing. He smiled faintly, relief flickering in his eyes. Duly noted. I took a step closer, close enough to feel his breath. And what now, boss? You gonna write a press release about us? He shook his head slowly. No, I'm done performing. I just want to live. Something inside me cracked. The last bit of distance I'd been clinging to. You're really an idiot, I whispered. I know, he said. But I'm your idiot now. That night, when the news finally stopped spinning and the city went quiet, I stood by my apartment window, Noah asleep in his bed. My phone buzzed. A message from Adrian. They can say what they want. I'm not letting them define us. I don't care about others' opinions. What I care about is you. I wrote, bold of you to assume I'm part of us. Adrian messaged, Then tell me I'm wrong. I stared at the message for a long moment before typing back. I wrote, "You're still slow, boss, but you're learning." And for once, I didn't delete the smile that followed. Mornings used to mean chaos. Coffee gone cold, Noah's shoes mismatched, and me running late because my boss thought 8 a.m. meetings were a lifestyle choice. Now, mornings meant something entirely different, like watching the most powerful alpha in the city struggle with a frying pan. I leaned against the kitchen counter, arms crossed, amusement plain on my face. "You burn eggs for a living now? Impressive career change, Mr. CEO. Adrian didn't even flinch, flipping something questionably edible with a spatula. "Learning for you two," he said simply. I blinked. "You say that like you're applying for the world's hardest internship." He turned, smiling faintly. "I've handled mergers worth billions, Eli, but getting Noah to eat without throwing cereal at me, that's the real test of leadership." I snorted into my coffee. "Good luck. He already runs this household. You're just staff." Noah giggled from the dining table, face sticky with jam. "Daddy's staff." Adrian placed the plate, half-burnt eggs, fully sincere effort, on the table and kissed Noah's head. "If the boss says so." Watching them, my chest did that annoying warm thing again. The one I told myself was indigestion, not affection. The smell of coffee filled the apartment, mixing with the faint smoke of Adrian's cooking experiment. He looked strangely at peace here, without the suit, the boardroom glare, the armor. Just a man in a t-shirt, sleeves rolled up, trying too hard not to ruin breakfast. It felt domestic. Dangerous word. "Stop smiling like that," he said, catching me staring. "You're enjoying this." I shrugged, lips curving. "Watching the great Adrian Hale versus breakfast? Oh, I'm thrilled." He rolled his eyes, but there was laughter in them. "Keep teasing me, and you'll be in charge of dinner." "Bold of you to assume I can't burn water," I shot back. Noah's laughter bubbled through the room, pure and light, breaking the last bits of tension that had haunted us since the wedding chaos. For the first time, it felt like a home. Messy, imperfect, real. Later that day, Adrian insisted on fixing the cabinet door I'd been ignoring for weeks. He was kneeling beside me, sleeves rolled up again, while I handed him the screwdriver. Noah was on the floor nearby, constructing some kind of Lego empire and occasionally announcing, "Daddy, I made you a tower." Adrian glanced at him with that soft, unguarded smile that always caught me off guard. "That's amazing, buddy." Then his gaze drifted back to me. Too long, too warm. "Stop staring," I muttered, cheeks heating despite my best effort. "It's distracting." "Can't help it," he murmured. I rolled my eyes, pretending to focus on the cabinet, though my pulse betrayed me. "You know you're supposed to fix the cabinet, not emotionally damage your secretary." He chuckled lowly. "You're not my secretary anymore. You are the boss." That hit differently. Half nostalgia, half relief. "Right," I said softly. "Guess I'm something else now." His hand brushed mine as we reached for the same screw. The contact was small, but my heart stuttered anyway. His scent, steady and grounding, wrapped around me. "Eli," he said quietly, "I know I messed up. I let too many people decide my life before, but not anymore. This," he gestured between us, "this is mine to protect now." I swallowed, trying to keep my voice steady. "You say that like I'm fragile." He smiled. "No, like you're worth fighting for." Damn him. Why did he have to sound so sincere? By sunset, the apartment glowed warm orange. Noah ran around in circles, laughing as Adrian chased him across the living room. "Got you!" Adrian lifted him high, spinning him until Noah squealed. "Daddy!" the boy giggled, throwing his arms around Adrian's neck. Adrian held him close, laughing softly. And in that moment he looked lighter, like a man who'd finally outrun his past. I crossed my arms, pretending unimpressed. "See? He's already got your ego." Adrian turned toward me, still holding Noah, his eyes gentle. "Guess he got my heart too." Something in my chest melted completely. Before I could think better of it, I walked over, stood on my toes, and kissed him. It wasn't dramatic or desperate, just simple, quiet, like everything we'd been running from finally catching up. When I pulled back, his forehead rested against mine. "Eli," he whispered, voice low, "you sure this isn't just your sarcasm talking?" "Ugh," I said, smirking. "That was disgustingly sweet. Say it again." I kissed him again, because if anyone deserved a second take, it was us. From the floor, Noah clapped, clearly pleased with himself. "Daddy Kissy," I laughed. "Guess he got my heart too." I groaned, burying my face in Adrian's chest. "Congratulations, our sons are romantic. We're doomed." Adrian's arm wrapped around me, steady and sure. "Not doomed," he said softly. "Just home." I was mid-sentence, something sarcastic about bedtime stories, when Adrian suddenly stepped closer. The movement made the air still. Noah was dozing on Adrian's shoulder, small fingers clutching the alpha's shirt. The child's quiet breathing was the only sound in the room. Adrian's free hand rose, not rough, but steady, fingers curling beneath my chin, tipping it upward. Our eyes met. The space between them seemed to hum. "Adrian?" I whispered, unsure whether to step back or lean in. "Just once," Adrian said quietly, "for everything I couldn't say before." He bent down and kissed me, slow, grounding, careful not to wake the boy between them. I froze for a heartbeat, then melted into it, one hand resting over Adrian's wrist, feeling the thrum of his pulse. The world outside the small apartment disappeared. No boardrooms, no secrets, just the soft weight of a child between them and the warmth of something finally right. When we parted, Adrian's voice was barely a breath. "Guess I can hold both my worlds at once." I huffed a shaky laugh, eyes shining. "Show off." And for once, I didn't have a sarcastic comeback, just a stupid, helpless smile. Because maybe, just maybe, he was right. This is our home, a family.